All right, guys, new day, new parts for my Supra. So we're just gonna make this quick and easy. Fuelab, thank you guys very much. They sent me 2 brushless pumps. So open this hog up here real quick. Boom, boom. Look at that. Of course, we're at the top, swag bag. Who doesn't love stickers and t-shirts? I'm fat and I love my t-shirts. So this is a brushless fuel pump setup. Look at that. Get that up on the wall here. But here it is. So it's 2 pumps and 2 controllers. And I'm gonna explain why we did 2 here. And this video is gonna go a little in depth. So if this is boring, I'm gonna try and keep this as interesting as possible, because the point of this is I have little to zero videos out there of any brushless pumps. Everyone just runs regular pumps and there's like no videos. And if there are, they are so generic, they don't go over this. And I'm gonna go in detail with you today. So if this gets a little long in the tooth, I apologize, but I wanna make sure you guys understand why we're going to brushless versus brushed. Both are great. In my opinion, brush pumps are great because they're simple, but these just have so many better benefits for the long haul and just in general. So let's pull them out here. So we'll just continue with the unboxing here first before we get into the nitty gritty details. So we are gonna be running 2 pumps. These are considered 500 liters per hour. And if you go off their sheet, at 43.5 PSI, they're 500 liters per hour. So if you have to go down to the data sheet. So I'm gonna be posting in this video showing the difference between, say, a 525 brush pump versus a, brushless pump like this setup. Now, the reason I'm gonna show both the charts is, and there's a big difference, there's a check valve style, non-check valve style. 99% of you guys are running a check valve style, because if you don't, you can't run dual pumps. This is a check valve style also, but this has like about 110 to 120 liters per hour more than each 525 pump. So I gained about 250 liters per hour. And I'm gonna be dropping down to 14 amps max with these versus 25 to God knows what, because I saw spikes up to 43. Yikes, yeah. So that is another big proponent of this. Now there is some things that are different. This will have a controller, which is in this box here. And again, I'm gonna pull this out and show you guys, but this is how it's packaged up. Here's the stuff that they sent today. Both are barbed, okay? Let's pull it out. So just opening all these up here. These are both the controllers here, guys. So controller and controller, and these I believe are the pumps, or maybe I have it wrong. It says it's the pump. That comes 2 and 2, great. Set this stuff off to the side. Oh, these bags are quite small too, I like that. Again, this is 3-wire. Again, I'll explain this versus what you're normally used to. Look how little the pump is. Look at this. I'm gonna compare it to a 525 then also, guys. Again, I'm gonna go in depth with this, so please be prepared. Comes with clamps too. Oh, I like these, they're the reusable kind. I like those. So do that. And I'm just gonna go ahead and remove one of the controllers again. Leave one when I have to. I don't like to take stuff out unless I absolutely have to. Move that there. Now the controllers are a lot smaller than I even thought. Look at that. I mean, I thought these were a lot bigger. Look how tiny this is. It's just a little guy. Now I obviously will have 2, but I could stack them top and bottom. I think I wanna make sure before I do that. I don't know if it creates too much heat. This does act like a heat sink, so I wanna make sure if I can stack them that way, that would be nice instead of trying to sit them side by side. If I could stack them on top of each other, I'll make a plate. It's got these mounting holes here. But yeah, I love on the back. 25 amp max load, that's period, that's it. That's all she can run. So you can see it there, was a little bit of a glare, but 25 amp max, take it out of the bag here. But you can also pulse width modulate them. Again, I'm kind of rambling on because I wanna go into details here. So I'll shut up, let's pull it out and let's go over it. All right guys, so I wanted to kind of stand in front of the camera here. Look at the awesome shirt from Fuelab. So we're gonna go over some of the pumps here and what was already in the car. So what we have right here, if you wanna come in, Sean, here are the 2 pumps we got. Now I'm not gonna go over the differences between each pump as they are the same pump, but look how tiny they are. So in reference right off the bat, we'll go ahead and take it here. This is a Rouzerville 525 pump. I wanted to make sure you guys had the part number. I had these in the car, and again, there you can see it's a TI Automotive or Rouzerville. Right off the bat, you can see, yeah, there is a size difference here. And I wanted to say, not only is it fatter here, but these are slightly thicker than the bodies here. So if we take a measurement here, I'm gonna try and get this for you guys on camera. If you wanna come over here, Sean, you see it's about 41.5 for the body. This is gonna be the one thing you guys wanna be aware of, that at the body, where a lot of these clamshells, a lot of these fuel systems are designed for the Rouzerville, these are slightly, ever so slightly thicker. So if you come in here, these are 39.5, so about 2 millimeters difference, okay? So you guys need to be cognitive of that. Now on top of that, the hole here for the bottom is slightly bigger on these. These can pump more fuel, okay? So the hole in this is different, so it takes a certain bag. Now it comes with a kit, you can get it that way, or you can just get the pump. So make sure if you're ordering this, that if you don't have the bags already, you need to order that. Here's the part number for that too. Or what you guys can do is you can just get a kit. So Fuelab makes it pretty easy here. So here's for the electronic controller. So again, there's the part number and everything else. And then if you want the pump with all the bag, everything, there's a part number for that. Now, some of the other stuff that I like, I'll put this off the side here. Some of the other stuff I like is the fact that this is low amperage. At full tilt, at 110 or 15 PSI, I think the check valve opens at 125 PSI on this. These things, and I can't believe this, run 14 amps. My 525, this boy here, will do 25 and then some. When I'm at like 100 PSI, when I'm running all the boost through the car, and I'm talking fuel pressure, by the way, guys, not map pressure. So I want to be clear here. I'm running 60 PSI base. So this is when I'm running about 40 to 45 PSI boost pressure, which it should be a 1-to-1 ratio with your fuel. At that point, this pump is pulling 27, 28 amps. So like even a Deutsch TTP pin is not rated for that. So your wiring system, everything's working so hard. So when you have a car and say you have a 100 amp alternator, 110 at most, just your pumps are pulling 50 amps and it's gotta run everything else in your car on top of it. It's a lot to ask of your system. This now almost cuts it in half. And on top of it, you can pulse width modulate it, meaning that you can run even lower amperage when you're cruising around and not have to have that strain of system. So you can use it for, say, your stereo system, this, that, or the other. It's just pulling a lot less, and it's brushless, meaning there's no moving parts, roughly. It's just keeping it and gives longevity. So in theory, right, what the old rule of thumb is, a brushless pump will last 10 times longer than this. 10 times. And being honest, I haven't had a bunch of problems with these, besides them getting really hot, and they are starting to wear out, and as they wear out, the amperage goes up even more. These will we won't have that problem. It just doesn't exist. So in theory, if you're like me who puts a good bit of miles on, this should be the last pump you ever buy. The best part is a lifetime guarantee. I've never even heard of a fuel pump having a lifetime guarantee, nor did I even think that was a thing. There's a lifetime guarantee. As long as you take care of it, as long as you clean the filters or replace them, they guarantee these for life, along with the controller, which is absolutely amazing. And that's what I wanted to get to next. The one main difference is, this is a 2-wire system on a brushed pump, okay? 2-wire. This, as you see, is a 3-wire system, okay? It's a 3-phase motor, just like you would on your Impact for your Milwaukee or your DeWalt. So it requires a controller. Now, I've already made this fancy little bracket and cut some of the wires here. So these are your power wires in, and these are your PWM wires. Now, you don't have to use this. You can loop them and actually run these on all the time. I personally have a Haltech Nexus, so I'm gonna pulse width modulate them so they're not on all the time, and then trigger the second pump too. But when going out, you're gonna have a total of 3 wires here. You're gonna have a red, black, and a yellow. You're just gonna have to wire those in yourself. Now, they do also sell a kit for that. We sell a bulkhead, things of that nature. I won't need that, as we see as we get further into this video. I don't need that. I have a Powerhouse Racing hanger, which makes it very easy. If you're a super guy like myself, heavily invest in one of those, makes life easy. So we don't have to do any of that, but they do have a bulkhead connector. So if you're using a factory hanger, you drill it out, screw it in, because you don't have, there's no threading to do, screw it in, and you have your wiring. It makes it pretty, now what's the word I'm looking for here? It makes it pretty standard, right? You don't have to do a whole lot. Another thing that I do like, as you get all that, it comes with all the instructions. So it tells you exactly how you're going to wire it up here. And again, it's very straightforward. I'm gonna be running this off a PDM, but you will need, on top of the controllers here, you will need a fusion relay. My fusion relay will be coming from the PDM, which I'll show you guys again that in this video, but you will have to do that on top of this. But again, it's in the trunk, it's back there. It's not something you really gotta worry about, but you will have to add that. The other thing I like is each pump is serialized. So it's not like Walbro where it's just a pump that's going out there. Not only is each pump serialized, but you get a flow chart with each pump. Gives you the number, the day, the test time, the voltage used, and it gives you the flow rate. It's a very basic flow rate, but they test each pump. And I think that's how they get away, I should say, that's how they're able to give it a lifetime warranty, because each pump is serialized that way. And the same thing with the controllers. If you come in here, you'll see serial number 18 and 19. Each one has its own number. So again, I just wanted to show you guys that. Gives you guys like a little bit of a rough breakdown. And I know it's already gonna be asked before we even get to this part, what does it cost? If you're a normal consumer, from what I've seen, from say a Summit Racing, from here, there, the other, it's about $450 to $500 for a pump and a controller, the bags, everything. This will support 800 horsepower, wheel horsepower, right? That's phenomenal. So if you're a super guy or a GTR guy, this is the only pump you need. You don't need 2 pumps. If you have a 525, it's about $150 to $170. So this is a little bit more, right, for just the 1 pump versus, you know, there's 2 pumps you still would need.
but at the end of the day, it's only one pump, it's less amperage, you never have to worry about it again. It's a one and done thing. Or in my case, you only have to have 2 pumps ever, because it'll make 1,500 wheel horsepower for me. And I'll never have to do it again. I'll need a triple pump system. I don't have to worry about all the extra heat. It's just, in my eyes, I think this is the way of the future. And I see these getting more efficient. Right now, they're 500 liters per hour at 45 PSI, versus this only does like 375 liters per hour at 45 PSI. That's why these are deceiving. You see the word 525 and go, well, Ryan, that's more. No, that's at like no PSI. It's like no pressure. That's where it's rated at. Where these guys actually rate them like you should. A factory car runs usually 43.5 PSI, but most of us just put it 45. At 45 PSI, this is 500 liters per hour. This is 370 to 380. It's a massive difference, guys, and it's, again, smaller. So that's my personal opinion on it. Want to give you guys some feedback. Let's go ahead and install it in the car now.
All right, so this looks like a jungled up mess, and excuse some of this stuff. I don't know why this is like factory, whatever, coated stuff that just like turned yellow over time. I should just dry ice and get it out. Like, look at this. It's like, been trying to scrub it out, but I just need to remove those pads. So let's ignore that. But I had to tap into the factory wiring here. So this is for the fuel wiring here. And my buddy Jose at Kaizen Motorsports showed me this years ago, that you can tap into this to trigger your fuel pumps. So these are what I'm gonna use to pulse width modulate the pumps, which is what I was using before, just to turn them on and off. So those 2 wires there, you can see the green and the purple, that went into the factory fuel pump box, but you don't need that anymore because you just don't. Then I ran it over here, ran it over here, down, and into this. So people were asking, like, why don't you put both facing this way, because you thought it was coming up there. So I'm using the factory wiring to tap into it, make it a little bit easier, so I don't have to run random wiring when I already have some here. Eventually I'd like to redo all the wiring in the car, start fresh, but you guys know how that goes. So that's going to be my pulse width modulation. I did 2 different colors here so I can at least test it. I got to double check to see which is which here. So I know what is truly 1 and 2 when I kick it on, because I want to make sure that I have it labeled. I have temporary tape, but I'm going to do something a little bit nicer to know, like, hey, this is 1, this is 2, and then even for the wiring, so I know, to make it a little bit easier, if something's not working right, I can test it pretty easily. Now for the power, I just need to depin this and put it right over here and put it into a 2-pin Deutsch connector instead of this 4. Now I'm trying to find a 6-pin Deutsch connector that is DTP. I don't need DTP for the pulse width modulation, but I would just, just make it easy so I don't have to put a small DT over here somewhere. It would just make it a lot easier on me, but I haven't found anything quite yet. If I do, I'll let you guys know in this video, because I'm gonna take all these wires right here and run them into it. And again, here's your ground wires for this. So I just took the 2 ground wires. It worked out perfect for me. I didn't have to lengthen it. It's gonna reach perfectly over here to my Odyssey battery, and I'd have to lengthen it. Shorter the better for when it comes to ground wiring. It just makes it super, super easier on your life. And again, when I have this bulkhead here, you don't have to. We have a factory wiring spot we can use here, but you got to try and fish the wiring up through, and I will have to extend all those wires there, and they are 12 gauge wires. So you want to try and keep that as short as possible. This goes right from here into the Powerhouse Racing hangar, which I'll show. So I'm trying to find something, and I'm going to show it in this video. If I don't do that, then I have to run it down through there. It's just, I don't have another choice. So again, one thing I wanted to show here, guys, is I have a Haltech Nexus. So it's a PDM that is driving the pump. So it's my power, my fuse, and my relay, okay? So I'm able to monitor. And I had this on my old setup with the 525 pumps. And I narrowed it down to a window here, where I may have pulled, but just driving around. So this is just not in it. So HCO1 is just high current output, and HCO2 are my pumps. So 1 is my main pump, and 2 only kicks on when I'm in boost. This is cruising around. I want you guys to be able to see this. Look, this is me, not in boost, not doing anything. This is cruising around. This here is my ignition output, so ignore that one, but that's cruising around. It's running 18, 19 amps, cruising, not in boost, just cruising in vacuum. That is wild. Meanwhile, the new pumps should, which again, I'm gonna run it off the PDM, we'll be able to see, it should be that. Now watch, as soon as I get into boost, it's over 20 already. And as it goes up more and more, it gets up there and goes more and more. Now, what you will see is they have horrible spikes here. I wanna show you guys this. When a second pump kicks on, look at this. And that's a baby spike. Some of these get really bad. Like that's still just right there. Look at these, the inrush, 38.7. Like, it's wild. These 525 pumps are no joke, guys. This is why I want to get into it. Now, they've been working for me, and again, I'm not saying that you need to remove your pumps tomorrow, but they do pull some serious amperage. They've been working for years. I'm on my second set. I wanted to update because they were getting tired again. A brush pump does work less and less over the years, right? Brushless doesn't have those same moving parts, doesn't have the brushes in it, so it doesn't tire out like this. Again, the whole The whole theory is they should last 10 times longer than a brush pump. So the brushless pumps last 10 times longer than a brush pump. So in theory, they should last forever. If a brush pump lasts 100 to 150,000 miles, these should last to 1 million to 1.5 million miles. So for most of us sports car guys, it should be forever. And they're not susceptible to damage since there's not moving parts in it. So, you know, the E85 gunk up, all that stuff, it doesn't care what fuel you run. It just doesn't care. So I wanted to show you guys that first. Now let's get the fuel pumps in, and then we'll go over getting the car set up, and then we'll get some amperage draw for that. So this is what the 525 is, and later in the video, we'll go over it and see what the brushless pumps do. All right, so starting to disconnect things. So getting rid of this here, shouldn't say getting rid of, I'm gonna keep this set up. I might actually swap this over to the wife's car now just because it'll work pretty easily, to be honest. And it has the same thing. It has a Powerhouse Racing hanger in it. So I actually might swap this over to that car. But I'm gonna need to depin these two wires here because I'm gonna have to repin it into a 2-wire connector. It's still DTP, so it works out perfect. Boom, just switch it over there. Makes it easy, but I might run some wiring and change up her setup. Now that runs 2 pumps, so I might actually switch that to one of just these pumps. That's the one thing that's nice. One of these pumps will do everything a stock engine Supra really needs, which is pretty awesome. Actually, I might do that because that would be pretty great. I only have to run 1 pump on her car. And I need 1 controller then. Just makes it super simple. So yeah, just need to do this. Boom, pop that out, need to depin that. Went ahead and took the 10 millimeters off of this, and hold on here because I've got this set up here. When I pull it up, come on, what's it? This still got a nut on it? Why is it stuck? Dang, that seal is no joke on there. That's good, so it keeps the fuel smell out, but there we go. So need to pull this up and then take the connector off here. All right, so what I need to do is pull this out. So you pull this little guy, boom, that's your lock. Pull that out, and I have this little tool here I use. Works pretty darn well, to be honest. And I just need to unlock one at a time. And I want to make sure I remember which is which. So I had it numbered. Number 1 is on top here. So there we go. Come on. This wire is no joke. This is Tefsel wire, and it is sturdy. So I want to make sure I get it numbered and have it correct here. So I know that if this is going to be my pump 1, that's this power wire here. So it needs to go into this connector, into this hole right here. Boom. This is why I love Deutsch Connect. Look how easy that is. Boom. Now let's do the other one, put it on the other side, and we're done. So again, just pull that tab down. Whoops. Pull this tab down. And if I can get my finger in there, we go. Pull that out. Don't need this anymore. Oh crap, I'm gonna have to crisscross it some though, which I don't like doing, but I do want to keep it one and the same. So bend this out. There we go. Yeah, I don't like that. I have to crisscross that. Yeah, that's not appealing. I might have to fix that. Yeah, I had to flip-flop that around. Couldn't have it so it could come in straight like that. I just like that better. And again, I went ahead and put the lock in, but this wire runs completely up to my PDM up front now. I might actually take this all out, but I wanted to at least run it so that part is done. So this runs up and directly to my PDM that's under the footwell there. You obviously don't want to run power wire, especially when you have power back here. But in this case, I have the PDM, and again, I'm using 10 gauge Tefsel wire. The amp draw, the amp drop isn't too bad. It's about 10 foot long, 10 to 9 foot. So the max amperage this it can really handle is about 25 to 30 amps, which in this case now really doesn't matter, which is the other thing I like. Thought about going to a PD16 in the trunk so I could drive them off that and the wiring be shorter, but again, I have a ton of 25 and 8 amp outputs left of my Nexus that I'd like to use. So here's my pulse width modulation, here's my power. Now these wires just need to be ran up to the tank here, and I'll be done. Done for the wiring, I should say, but I need to take this out. Again, this is my Powerhouse Racing hanger. Went ahead and took the connector out. It uses a mil-spec style connector. It's an 8 feed, 6 return setup. This is a breather hose here, but it just has this lock ring. You take this off and pull it out. So loosen, pull off, remove lock ring, pull out. I do like this about the Supra that's in the trunk. Most cars are in the back seat, which I hate. I love that I can have all this room, stand right here and do it all. And it keeps you from getting fuel inside the actual interior. Kind of like just keeps everything separated, which I always thought was kind of cool. So got that out, I'm gonna show over here. I need to get a light down here, but E85 is such a dirty fuel. Like I just put a new bag on this so you can see with the primary, and I had a stainless steel one in a bag. This bag is maybe 3 weeks, a month old. yellowed already. And look at all that gunk down there. Look at all that. It's crazy how dirty E85 is. I don't know why it is. It just gets so much more contaminants in it. So this is a 50, I believe this is 50 or 100 micron, and then I have a 6 micron filter for the injectors. So this is why you got to clean it every year, because it gets stuck full of crap, and that kills your, what's what I'm looking for? It kills your filters and kills your injectors and stuff, and kills pressure. So it makes the injectors have to work harder. It's wild how bad that is. And again, this is where it's nice to get away from brushed pumps to brushless, because there's no moving parts, stuff to break down, so on and so forth. So let's get these pumps out though. As you can see, 2 525 pumps are what I had in there. Here's the connectors. Now, one thing I am doing, as you can see here, they have a direct connector. Now, what I could do is splice directly into this, but I'd like to keep this so it's not spliced into. So, God forbid this, I do have to replace this down the road. I don't like using crimp. Like, I don't like using like a squish connector. I like a connector on connector. It kind of sucks. It's gonna have 2 connectors inside here, but I think that's the best way about going about it. So yeah, I'm gonna take this pump out here first, and I wanna have them in there side by side so you can see it. So I gotta cut these clamps off and put them in. Again, these pumps aren't that old. And you can see I had it set up for wall-bore pumps. I crimped this, and I'm going to use these style connectors. They make a 3-way connector, which I ordered. Realistically, I could get away with using 2-way, so one could be PWM, one for power, and the one for the grounds. Realistically, now I think about it, I probably could just do that, but I just like, I don't know why, mentally, I want it 3 and 3, just so I know exactly how to pull the tank out. It rules it out and makes it simple for me. So we ran into our first issue, guys. The pump will not fit. I've tried bending the bracket out, tried sanding this down a little bit, but it just won't fit. Unfortunately, the pump, that 1.5 millimeters makes this not work. That being said, Joe at Dual Design is already making a new bracket to work for this. So that is the nice part. Makes this pretty easy, to be honest. So the goal is to get that on and get this inside the tank. I don't know if he's gonna make it for triple like this, because you really don't need triple of these pumps. Like 2 of these pumps is 1500 horsepower. And again, after that, you're gonna be running so much boost, and the pumps won't keep up. What I mean by that is you're gonna be opening the check valve, it's gonna be on that limit. Well, maybe. Again, if you need that much, you're gonna be running some crazy, crazy amounts of pressure and fuel. So I'm not sure if he's gonna set up for triple or not, but just wanna show in the video, so it's gonna be a little bit, so if you see, things don't look the same in the garage, it's probably gonna be a couple weeks till I get them in. But I wanna do this right. Again, I could hone this out and make it work, but it doesn't leave you much meat then, and I don't like that idea. So I'm gonna have him do it properly. He might just do 1 and 1, so you could literally go boom and boom, so it fits down inside the tank nicely, because where it really gets tight is the side-by-side ones. So I'm not sure how he's gonna do it. So I'm gonna send him the pumps and yeah, go from there. He already makes something for the Fuelab Brushless setup, the big pump. It's rated for 1250 horsepower, but that's at the crank. So that's just, I'm right on the cusp if that's enough. So I really need 2, and these just fit in the tank a little bit better. These are everything you need. So I will keep you guys posted on that. And then, yeah, you'll see that in part of this video. All right, guys, so we're back at it here. Couple things I wanted to show you. Number 1, I got everything plugged in now, so I have tape on it now. I'm gonna mark the sides. I wish I had something like a label marker. Again, I'm more of a DIY guy here, so please excuse some of this. It's still marked, I'll be able to know, but when I get something here to properly, instead of just have painter's tape, but I wanted to at least see what I knew coming up from the front. This is the number 1. And the reason I want to know this is in case like a module goes bad, a pump goes bad, I know. And I did a 4-pin connector and blocked off the 1, because pumps do go bad sometimes. Some things can happen. So I wanted it so I can disconnect, flip between them, test if possible, right? And that's the easiest way. You can plug, unplug. If not, I would have just hardwired it. But in this case, I'm using Deutsch connectors here. I'm using Tefsel wire that I ran through. So I ran down through here and then up over like factory. So I'm not using that Deutsch connector anymore. Now, I might flip this all around and put that over onto the wife's car here, because I'd like to get one of these pumps into the auto car, for the fact that 1 pump should be able to supply all the power that car needs. Because again, it's supposed to be able to handle up to 800 wheel horsepower. So that should be able to flow enough just for that car. So instead of having 2 pumps, I'd go down to a single pump in that car, and I could use that Deutsch connector, because you don't have to run 3 wires. I'd plug off the 1, and I'd run it straight through up and over. It would just make it very, very simple. Wouldn't have anything running down through here anymore, besides it have this 1 single wire like that one. Besides that, that would be it. The trigger would be same here, that you'd have to do a triggered setup like that, which I already currently have. So
would be pretty simple. I would just have to run one single wire. And the reason I want to do it too is that car I'm gonna have to use, I think 2 25 amps are used on that. I think I have 2 open 25 amps, but I want to use the 125 amp for something else. So it allowed me to run one single wire. I'd run one back, and that would just need one controller that way. It'd actually be a lot simpler too. So it'd just be one controller, one pump. And I can see things in the future with Fuelab get to the point that have like a 550, a 600, 650, so on and so forth. So eventually one pump's all that need, and maybe eventually all this will need. But 2 pumps for this car just because it is a little bit more power car versus that, which is a little bit slower car. But that has 2 340s in it or whatever. So I think I can make like 800-ish on those 2 pumps, but I might have to go to 450s on that. So I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like I could just go down again. I'm trying to do less is more. There'll be less amp draw on that car. It's already an automatic and pulling more as it is. So less amperage, the better in my opinion. So yeah, again, 2 4-pin Deutsch connectors here. I just crimped this. Now, one thing I would recommend, I use 10 gauge TXL wiring. I probably, if I were to do this again, I would have used 12 gauge Tefsel. They only have 14 gauge coming out of here. But for the longer run, just to be safe, I would recommend just using 12 gauge. I use 10 gauge TXL. It just made it really fast. See how thick this is. Would have been thinner, wouldn't have as much, would have been a lot nicer inside of here. So again, recommend using 12 gauge Tefsel. This is 10 gauge Tefsel here, but it's a much longer run. So longer runs, more amp draw, and I was able to lug it directly here, directly to the controller, so I didn't have to actually extend the wires. It worked out perfect, came right to the battery, so the best ground possible. So yeah, only thing I gotta do now is pin these in. The one thing I need to test is I wanna see which is which, because I don't wanna switch up grounds and signals and all that good stuff, right? I need to make sure I have the right pumps going to the right area. So I need to double check that before I pin it all in here, because I want the right grounds going to the right trigger. Because if you have the wrong grounds and pins going, it won't do you any good. So I need to figure that out real quick, and after that, I should be good.
All right, I wanted to show you guys this before I put everything back here, but I'll just bring this over, make it easy, get careful here. You can see my needle, so that's how I back probed it to see, because I'm like, which wire goes to what? Like, I want to know, and I used blue tape, painter's tape here just to mark which ones were one. So what I did was this, I clamped this guy to one of the wires here. We'll say this one here. Okay, that goes to number 1. And then I put this, all right, so we can ohm it out, so you can see there. All right, right now, there we go, take it off auto. All right, now I took my little needle. So this is just a sewing needle here. So you guys can see this here, sewing needle. Ouch, and I pushed the wrong end like a dumbass. And then this went down here. Should hear it once I back probe through it. It's kind of, again, it's piercing through, and that's how I know which is which, because I wanted to make sure everything's lined up so it's switching on properly. But that's my number 1, and yeah, that takes care of that. And this came loose from me fucking with it so much, so I need to tighten that back. I'm gonna have to pop this off and tighten that bolt down, because I used a oh shoot, can't remember what these are called. You can tell I've been doing this a little too long. But anyways, yeah, got these things tied down. I want to put a couple more of those there because I don't like this being loose. Anything that can chafe and move, make sound, don't want it to. So anyways, yeah, so that takes care of that. Now I got to pin that in, and then we'll take the pumps out here next. So close, guys. I'm just waiting for the dual design setup to show up, and I'll show that in the video here. Okay, guys, so now we're on to the wiring part. I got the pumps and stuff out. Mailman is dropping off the actual hanger part. So we're gonna be continuing to use a Powerhouse Racing hanger. The only thing we're changing is this area here. The pumps are just slightly larger. Now, that being said, Dual Design / Powerhouse Racing will be selling this clamp. So we'll be able to hold 2 pumps in here, and that's all you really need. Anything after those 2 pumps, you're really gonna need to go to most likely a mechanical setup, because those 2 pumps should outflow 3 525s. Or flow about the same as 3 525s if you look at it on a scaled view. So from there, it's kind of one of those things like, yeah, you need to go to mechanical at that point. But it's going to have 2 holders in it. And the nice thing with the Powerhouse Racing now, if you have a radium, this is going to be a little bit harder. But for this, all I got to do is unbolt that, and that comes off, and I can bolt on a new piece. And again, I'll show you that once it shows up here. I have this down because it keeps leaking fluid, and I get tired of keep wiping it up. But what I'm doing right now is the electrical part. Now, this is the one thing that is definitely different from the Walbros. The wiring down in here is built in, and they always had a connector here. This is different in the fact that they had a connector that goes directly to the pump, which I'll show you guys once the pumps and everything shows back up here. Again, I had to send those out so he could make them. So they have a clip that goes directly to it. Now, I could have hardwired this, cut these clips off because I had put these on,
So you could clip them on and off, makes it easy. I could hardwire it, but again, I didn't like the idea of crimping this and then trying to find some type of heat shrink that's ED5 safe. It's just, there's very few and far in between if there really is any. So that's why I always use these style connectors. Even these rubber seals don't need to be there. It's inside fluid, it doesn't matter as long as it's separated. So the best thing I could think of was using another connector on a connector. Yes, it is adding to another failure point, but the same thing, have to use a butt connector. So no matter what, I had to add another point of connection. It's just how it is since it's not hardwired. So I like this idea best, keeps it separated. It was the best way to crimp it. I don't have to worry about it, trying to insulate it, anything of that nature. This is actually got off, I want to forget what was a Pro Wire, but these are 30 amp Delphi 280s. These are for 10 to 12 gauge. Little overkill, but again, rather just do it in case they come out with a bigger pump. Because my thought process is eventually they'll come out with probably a 550, a 600, 700, so on and so forth, which eventually I'll probably be able to get down to just a single pump for my car and 100% go to a single pump on this car. Again, I like the idea of less is more. One pump means that I don't have to run as much crap, so I kind of like that idea. Anyway, so back to this. Again, it's a Delphi 280, and this is the 3-pin style. I could have just ran 2, 2, and 2, so I could have put black and black on a pin, red and red, yellow and yellow, right? Because side by side, and just kept the 2-pin connectors. Again, for me, it's just a weird thing. I wanted to each run to its own, area. I didn't want to have to do black and black. I don't know why, but my brain said that was the best way in case you just had a pump that went bad. Disconnect, boom, so on and so forth. Again, it shouldn't, but I overthink everything. I just think this looks nicer. God forbid someone takes the tank apart one day. They go, oh, okay, this guy actually kind of did this right. Hurt. So just wanted to make sure. Here's the pins. You're gonna strip it down. These aren't the best crimpers on earth. These are they're like Metro Pack style, and this only goes down to 14. And this is 14 gauge wire, but these are a little bit bigger, so it doesn't crimp as nicely as it should. Mostly around the area where you're going to, the backside where you're getting around the sheathing, because you're supposed to be crimping around these. I don't use these because I don't believe these ones are designed for in tank, so they're just gonna swell up and break down. So again, not necessary to have. If you look at the Walbro stuff, they don't have it either. So I'm gonna break these off, I'm gonna re-crimp this, those will be done, and then as soon as the pump shows up here this morning, I'll be able to put it together and show you guys how to do the proper lengths, because this is adjustable. We wanna make sure the pumps are sitting as far as possible, but not rubbing or resting against the bottom of the tank. Oh, it's here. Dual design, thank you, buddy. I appreciate this. Literally, so no one made a hanger for this or a specific clamp for this, which I'll take out here in a second. He repackages everything, even kept the pumps in here. He also made one for my buddy Tony at Stand Stagger Media. Love how his name's on it. He had everything engraved, tells you exactly what the pumps are. Love this. There's the bags I got back too, but Joe goes above and beyond. You can get these from Joe, or you can get it from Powerhouse Racing. So when you order a hanger, you can order it with the triple pump setup or a dual brushless setup like this, so you can get it directly from there. This is awesome. So let's get this out of the packaging so you guys can see it. So here is the clamp. It has a nice black, rough, not rough, but a more flat anodized look. I don't know how to explain it, but nicely engraved. Again, pumps in there. See how thin that is in the center too? This is one thing I like. So there's nothing wrong with this per se, but when you're putting the Powerhouse Racing pumps in, the sides of this kind of hit the plastic sump that's in there, which is to keep fuel from sloshing around. But you see there's more metal in between. He machined it much thinner in between so the pumps don't touch, but there's still plenty there, and there's still a ton of meat in the back for the bolts to go through and bolt this all down. So yeah, and again, this is only meant for 2 pumps because this should be realistically all you need. Anything more than this, these should realistically be going up to a big boy setup, like mechanical. So it's nice. Again, you only need 2 pumps and you don't need a triple setup anymore. Yeah, less is more, and it's brushless. So you can tell too, bottom of the pumps, which we showed earlier, see how it has a big bump out, no longer have that. But again, remember, the bags are specific to this. So you're gonna need these bags. Right there is the part numbers for it. You're gonna need these specific bags because the inlet is slightly bigger. Again, that's how it's able to put a little more fuel. So just be cognitive of that. One more thing before you take the pumps off and unbolt everything here, the one other thing I want to mention, guys, is try to measure this to see what the very bottom of where your pump setup is. Most likely, if you're like me, you had a factory setup. I measured this to get it right, to get where the pumps need to sit from the factory setup, where it could bottom out at. You see there's a slider on the back of the Powerhouse Racing setup here. So what you're gonna do is, in my opinion, the best way to do this or handle this is pull, to measure it from the very bottom where the filter sits up to the very top edge here, or whatever you want to use as your base point, here, wherever you want to use as your base, but measure to the very bottom. So when you put these in, slide it around, get it to the right spot, you know it's exactly as the same as it was before. This way it's not sitting too high, too low, because this will say, hey, you've got, might say you still have fuel, where realistically your pumps are sitting too high and it's not measuring properly. So this gives you that right depth, depending what you need. So just base it off that, or what you can do is slide it on, let it hit the bottom there, or get it roughly, so tighten this thing up, and then push this on till it stops, and then pull the pumps out, push them up just a smidge more so they're not rubbing or sitting against the bottom of the tank, because then fuel can't really get in the bottom of it or through the bag. So that's another way to do it. But if you've already got it measured, you already got it set up, you've already got a factory hanger, this is the best and easiest way to go about it. All right, so you'll notice everything's together here. One thing I'm gonna point out right away is you can see a black hose and then the longer white hose that came with the kit. I don't know why. You can see I tried heating it up here, but like it did not want to go on. I reused or used a new one of these black hoses that I had for my PHR kit. Now you can see it's pretty taut, but once it gets in the fuel there, these nylon ones even kind of loosen up a little bit. So it'll be fine. So I don't want to put too much pressure. You can see I can still move it and stuff. It's fine. And this pump here is just a skosh higher than the other. Now this will sit down in there, but again, just the way how close these are, the bags are over top and they're very stiff. They're like plastic brace. So kind of had to do that. Again, I don't let the tank get that low anyways. I know it's like a running joke that Supra owners always let their tank get super low. I don't. I'm really weird about that because the fuel acts as a way to cool the pump. So always been really weird about that. But yeah, everything's together now. Only thing I got to do is drop it back in. Again, clamped it here, and then down here, clip there, and you get our two big 3-wire clips here. Yeah, this should go in a little bit easier, I hope. Yeah, like I said, the only thing I had to do is this white one I was able to get on, but man, I tried like heck to get this on. It's just these are a little bit smaller. If you can see these, like I had to blow it out to try and get it to the size of this one here that comes with the PHR kit. I'm not sure why. Maybe this was just the incorrect hose in this time. Not a big deal, but just wanted to point that out. So yeah, all I got to do is put it back in and button everything up. Well, and this is the kind of stuff, even though I thought I measured the pumps right, it looks like it's, you'd see it's bottoming out here. It's inside of it right now, but I'm bottomed out already. So it needs to slide the pumps up a little bit. So again, this is the kind of stuff that does happen. So I'll have to remeasure it here and see where I maybe went wrong. All right, guys, so I tightened everything up here. So I did have to move up the pump slightly. Again, you have that adjustable in a Powerhouse Racing. That's not specific to these pumps per se, but it's specific to that hanger. So I was able to adjust it, and I kept playing with it. So what I usually do is the easiest way, now the tank is kind of curved, so you have to play it side to side. So I take a rod or take a measuring stick and put it down the tank, see if the sides, so both sides of that opening hole, so left, right, and then center. Try to find the happy medium between all three, and then measure it to that point. So I tried measuring outside the tank, but it kind of had an angle, so it wasn't measuring right. I did have to bring it up like a ½ inch or so, and it got it perfect. So you don't want the pumps resting on the bottom, but you don't want too high, because then your level sensor won't read properly because it's not adjustable. It reads out the factory height point. So I wanted to be aware that you guys need to know that. But this is a setup. Again, I need to make something proper that says 1 and 2. The reason I just did this is so I know, like, hey, this is the controller that's running all the time, not this one. Just so I know back here which is being used. And same thing with the wire. So I have blue tape for now. It's not going to stay like that. I think it looks decent. It could be a little nicer. Again, this running directly over here, I guess I could have like a bus setup, but it running directly to the battery I think is the most ideal. This sheathing and stuff, again, it's breathable, so which is nice for the wire, but it doesn't look the prettiest. So it's not perfect. I do have these 3M pieces, again, holding down the wire so it doesn't move. Same thing here and here for my big gauge wire. I think it's pretty darn good for what it is. But yeah, let's go over the ECU part, because I think this is the part that most people don't know. I actually talked to Nick about this, and I was right, Nicholas. So I was talking to Nick at Haltech. I had it set up right except for one single condition. So I'm pretty happy with myself. I actually talked to a few guys. I was happy that I did end up getting it. I want to thank Thomas, another gentleman that was helping out Joe Lala over at Dula Design. He is fantastic too. So thank you for the help, brother. But yeah, I'm going to put this cover back on, and let's get in the car, and I'm going to show you what it looks like in the software and how to set this stuff up. All right, guys. So here I have the software out. So this is how we're going to have to set it up. We're going to go over a little bit of the basics here first and foremost. So you're going to have to create generics, and you're going to have to create and work off the fuel pump table, because Haltech, this is specific to the Haltech. Haltech doesn't have it set up that you can just, it's not built into their software yet for brushless pumps. So this is what you're going to do. So you're going to use a DPO, digital pulse output, because this is pulse width modulate. It is a square wave signal also, okay? So you can digitally pulse the output. You're going to make sure these are active as high states, and we're going to use a 0 to 5 volt range. That's how it actuates between the hertz, which is 250 to 2500 hertz, okay? So up here, you're going to make sure that everything is set to a digital duty cycle for both of these. So your primary pump and your secondary, your auxiliary pump number 2, is set to a digital duty cycle. Okay, and from there, again, you want to make sure you sign whatever DPO you use, okay, whichever digital pulse output you want to use. For the primary output, prime time. So I have set to 4 seconds right now. I'm actually going to change that to 5 because with these brushless pumps, I want it to prime just a little bit longer just to make sure it's fully getting the system primed. For the signal, you're going to leave it at 1,000 hertz. You don't need to change this. Again, I'm going to keep testing here, but as of right now from driving and everything I've seen, 1,000 hertz is where the pumps are super happy. Next is setting up the fuel pump table. Now, everybody's going to be different. This is something 100% I'm going to be playing with. And now, but this is the primary fuel table. So this is the one where the pump's going to be running all the time, okay? So you're going to be basing this off of a 0 to 5,000 scale in my aspect. So 0 RPM up to 5,000, above 5,000, and above a certain boost level. I want it to be full kill. So it's 90% is where the fuel pumps need to be. So 20% is the minimum that you can run these pumps at. So you want to put 20, and the max is 90. So when the car's idling or just barely driving or anything, it's going to be 20 to 30 range. As soon as I get above 0 or hit 0, it's going to run 50%, 5 psi 70. Anything above 10, I want it to be at 90% because then I have my auxiliary pump here set up to kick on at anything over 3,000 RPMs or 10 psi. Okay, so anything over 10 psi, I want that pump and 3,000 RPMs to be kicking on. So they'll both be running at 90%. For the auxiliary fuel table, I have it 90 across the board. Now I can remove all this, make it, 0 down here, and remove all this like I do a table axis setup. I could change all this and just get rid of all this and just make it 0 and 0 pretty much and just say 90. But just leaving the table like this in case I want to change something. But yeah, 90% no matter what the conditions are, whether it's below here, above that, it's on full kill. Because if I'm kicking the secondary pump on, I need to make sure it has all the fuel. Now, because I am using the PDM to trigger this instead of a traditional fuse and relay. Traditional fuse and relay, you would see something like, hey, when I key the car on, it's going to send automatic power and your relay kicks on, right? So the trigger then can say, hey, I need to trigger this on. It uses traditional. Because I am using the PDM to do it, you need to create 2 generic tables. As you can see here, I created a fuel pump trigger 1 and trigger 2. Now I'm using 2 25 amp high current outputs for this. So here's what you're going to be basing it off of. I called it a fuel pump 1 trigger. Again, you could call it something else because it's your power really. I called it the trigger, but yeah, it's really your power for this. I should probably change that name because it's your constant power. Let's actually do that real quick here. Whoops. Let's do that fuel pump 1. Let's do that power, baby. It's going to kick me down. This one thing, if anyone from Haltech watches this, why does it do that? I got to set my favorites. Quit kicking me down there. I don't want to do that. Let's do that. Change the name. All right. And you're going to set the signal state or type to a state, and you're going to base it off conditions. So the condition settings are this. You'll come over here. And again, you can set up multiple conditions. In our case, we only need 1. Your fuel pump output state, which is your number 1 output or your number 1 fuel pump, your primary, it needs to be selected. Okay, so you're going to hit select, hit fuel pump output state. Then here on the drop down, you're going to go is equal to, as it's shown here, is to on. So if the fuel pump output state, okay, the trigger is saying, hey, turn it on, this is on. So it's going to always tell this power and relay, which is what the PDM is doing. It's your power, your relay, and your fuse is going to keep powered and stay on. Same thing down here. So it's the same condition, state and condition, and then the condition settings are only slightly different. The fact that you're going to be using your auxiliary. So auxiliary fuel pump 1, which is your secondary pump, same thing, is equal to on. So when this says trigger on, when it meets this conditions up above, which we saw like 10 psi, it'll say, hey, we're triggering on, which says, hey, I'll give it power now. If that makes sense to you guys, I just want to make sure it's crystal clear. It'll tell it what to do. So again, that is how you're going to set up the PDM. Now let's go ahead and key the car on here. This is where it gets really quiet. It's crazy to me. So let's do this. So as I key the car on here, I only have 20%, but you'll see the output state above and the amount of fuel pressure it's still able to do at 20% is wild. Oops. I hate that it does this. This laptop's old. But yeah, you can see it primed it there. It's now dropping. This is normal for it. But again, I have it set at 20. When the car fires up there, again, you want your 0 here. I will put a 20 across the board, no matter the PSI, whatever it is. Want it to do 20. Now, what you could do if 20 is not enough, you can make this all 25, which I might do just to be a little bit on the safe side. I don't think it's necessary per se, but I might just do that, or make this 25 here and then 25 at idle maybe, or just I'll change it around. That's part of the nice part of this. But again, I'm gonna key it off, key it on. You can just barely hear it. It's wild how quiet it is. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty impressive. One last thing I wanted to do, I wanted to show it here so you guys can see, because it's so quiet. It's like, man, it's hard to tell, like, is it really working the way it should? So key it off. You'll see it bump up there. And now, when you prime your fuel pressure system, it's going to drop. That what you're seeing right now, that is 100% normal. My wall bros did it, it's 100%. Even with a check valve system, you'll see that because the pressure does drop. It is 100% normal. I gotta fix this laptop for that reason. But that is 100% normal. Now, the next thing I wanted to show you guys is if I bump this up, so what's the prime here? Let's make this 50 here. Okay, I'm gonna key the car on and off. You can hear a lot more. Look at the fuel pressure. Goes way higher. Way, way, way higher. So let's do this again. And let's set this to say 25 now. Okay, key off and on. It's crazy how fast that works. So yeah, again, I just wanted to show you guys that. I think I'm going to set this at 25 across the board. I think that's just a little bit safer. I don't think I need it that low. Again, the amperage is still, like, I'll show you guys here. I'll kick these on. So I'm going to do 25. And let's make this 25 also. All right, there we go. And let's show you guys the amperage. So for fuel pump 1, and let's go down the wiring here. When I kick this on, you can see right now voltage and stuff, and then you'll be able to see right here your amperage, right here your high. And again, I could just kick it on, but I want to show you guys the keys on what it looks like. Oh, as it covers it up. You got to be kidding me. So try and show this again here. Key it on. At 25 amps, look at the amperage. Or at 25 hertz, look at that. It's barely pulling anything. Now, what I do want to show is what it looks like at full tilt. So if we come up here and change it, I have that priming a long time this time around. So we come up here to fuel pump table, and I'm going to set this biatch to 90. Still priming because I set it way too long. So we'll do that again. So I set it to 90 now. Let's go. Now I want you guys to see this. Now it's supposed to only pull up to 14 amps, but what I read, I was a little bit incorrect on this. You'll see up to 18 or 19. And again, 90 is like, you have to treat this a little bit differently than a brushed pump. The fact that a brush pump will go up in pressure, it'll go up, or lose pressure, but it'll go up in amperage, where if you command 90, that 90% is the same amount of amperage is going to pull at, say, 0 RPM, or at, negative, 15 boost pressure, or at 45 PSI boost pressure. It will stay the same. So if I key the car off and on, now this is 90, you'll hear it really hum here. Oh crap, I didn't hit enter, never mind. So here's where, again, I'll key off and on. This should be at 90%. You can hear that sucker. Listen to that thing hum, boy. Now that's at 90%. You can see the voltage. It's not that crazy still. 16, 17. Nothing crazy. Now again, that's going to pull some serious amperage here, so you want to let it do that all the time. But yeah, so again, that's why you don't need that. But you can see it's jumping around there. I think the highest we see 17. And again, that's on full kill, which is just like nothing. Like it's wild how efficient these pumps are. And again, it does 500 liters per hour at 45 PSI, where the 525 does 380. Up at 7 bar of PSI, which is over 100, okay? Excuse me, over 100 PSI of fuel pressure, it's still at like 390 or 400, where the, again, that's still higher than what the 525 is, a 450, or at 45. The 525 at that point is like next to nothing, and which I was starting to see. So these pumps, 2 of these pumps are all you guys are going to need. These are the end all be all. But I wanted to show you guys that. Let's wrap this up now. And on that note, guys, I want to thank Fuelab again. They sent me these pumps and these controllers for the car for testing for this video. So thank you guys very much for that. I appreciate it. Definitely took me a little bit more time. Apparently there hasn't been as many people who have run these, especially 2 brushless pumps. Most people have a single, but the biggest thing for this is the cost versus what you're doing. I think on like, if you're going to Summit or any other retailer, they're like $350 to $375 for the fuel pump, controller, the wiring, the tube. It brings you everything. They give you everything with the kit. I know that it costs a little bit more than, say, your brush pumps. I understand that. But the thing with this is lifetime warranty. That's right, lifetime warranty. And on that, in theory, a brushless pump should last 10 times longer than any brushed motor, period. It's supposed to last, if you got like a Milwaukee brushless versus brushed impact, one's gonna last 10 times longer than the other, the brushless being the one that lasts longer. So, and it's quieter and they don't contaminate. So like, he's like breaking it down for me. He's like, you don't want to get a bunch of junk going through it, but at the same time, unlike a brush motor where those contaminants help break it down and it causes the pump not to work as well, it's a brushless motor, so it doesn't care as much. It's just everything about it's more efficient. You shouldn't have nearly the same problems. Again, I showed you the amperage there. When at 25 amps, it's pulling, or at 25% duty cycle, it's pulling 5 amps. That is wild. Where before it would have been, at idle and stuff, my 525 pumps pulled 19 to 20 amps at idle. And then when I was full tilt, it would spike to 38 amps and it would probably ride around 26, 27, 28 amps, which again, on a 10 gauge Tesla wire, that is riding the line for the length I have. And then the DTP Deutsch pins were, it was definitely, they're 25 amp max. So I wanted to get away from that. Now we know that, hey, at 17 amps, these things are on kill at 90%, and I got 2 of those pumps. I'd like to see some more pumps come from them. I'd like to get, again, I'd like to do a single setup on this. This car right now has 2 340 pumps. I'd love to get away with running one single pump on this car on ED5. I don't know if the 500 is gonna be enough, because this car will make like 750, 800. I think it'll be right at that line. If they come out with a 550 or 600 liter per hour pump, I think that'd be ideal for a single setup. And I think it'll be ideal for more tuners and more people out there, because most 4-cylinder guys, that'd be more than enough they would need. For us JZ or inline 6 guys, one pump would then, for the most part, would be enough for most guys need. But even still, 2 pumps for the cost and how long they should last, that should make all the power I should ever need, period. Like that should be everything I need. The only other problem would be from here is I need to bring down maybe fuel pressure a little bit. I'm running 60 PSI base. The check valve doesn't open these to 125 PSI, but you gotta be cognitive of the fact of there's head pressure at the pumps, at the bulkhead there versus what's actually up at the fuel rail. So those are 2 different things. Just because you're seeing only 100 PSI up at the fuel rail, you might be seeing 110, 115, 120 back at the bulkhead, depending how well it flows, how much pressure is building up there, so on and so forth. You can put a sensor there and measure it. We're not going to do that here today. This video's already gotten long-winded, but there's no other video out there on brushless pumps, so I wanted to make sure this went over a lot in detail. Again, if you have questions, concerns, anything you'd like to ask me, anything I've possibly missed, and I probably have, please ask me down below. I'm going to try and do my best to answer them. Again, thank you guys very much, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.